Mandela's historic rejection. I find myself transported back to that pivotal moment in February 1985, standing among the 8,000 souls gathered in Soweto, witnessing what would become one of the most defining moments in the struggle against apartheid. The air was thick with anticipation, electric with the collective breath of a people yearning for freedom, as we waited to hear words that would echo through history and reshape the very foundation of South Africa's future. Nelson Mandela, the man whose name had become synonymous with resistance, whose voice had been silenced for over 2 decades behind prison walls, was about to speak through his daughter Zinzi. His physical absence from that rally only amplified the power of his presence, demonstrating that no walls, no matter how thick, could contain the spirit of a man who refused to compromise his principles for personal freedom. As I watched Zinzi step forward to deliver her father's message, I realized I was about to witness a masterclass in moral leadership that would redefine what it means to stand for justice. The context surrounding this moment was as complex as it was crucial to understanding Mandela's unprecedented decision. President Pieter Botha had extended what appeared to be an olive branch offering conditional freedom to Mandela and other black nationalist leaders, but the conditions attached to this offer revealed the hollow nature of what was being presented as governmental reform. The requirement that these leaders renounce violence and agree to obey South Africa's strict internal security laws was not merely a legal formality, but a demand for ideological surrender that would have undermined everything the African National Congress had fought to achieve. When Mandela's words rang out through Zinzi's voice declaring, "I cannot sell my birthright, nor am I prepared to sell the birthright of the people to be free," I felt the collective intake of breath from thousands of people who understood they were witnessing something extraordinary. Here was a man who had already spent over 20 years in prison, who could have walked free that very day, choosing instead to remain behind bars because he understood that true freedom could never be negotiated away in exchange for personal liberty. His declaration that "your freedom and mine cannot be separated" revealed the depth of his commitment to collective liberation over individual comfort. The complexity of Mandela's position became even more apparent as he addressed the accusations of violence that had been used to justify his imprisonment and continued detention. His acknowledgement that he was not a violent man, while simultaneously defending the necessity of armed struggle, demonstrated the nuanced understanding he possessed of the moral dimensions of resistance movements. He explained with painful clarity that violence had only become necessary when all other forms of resistance were no longer open to us, revealing how the apartheid system had systematically closed off peaceful avenues for change, forcing the oppressed to consider more drastic measures. What struck me most profoundly about Mandela's counterproposal was how it completely reframed the conversation about South Africa's future. Rather than accepting the government's terms, he presented his own conditions for meaningful negotiations, demanding that the government legalize the African National Congress release all political prisoners, allow exiles to return permit-free political activity, and commit itself to ending apartheid entirely. These demands were not mere negotiating tactics, but a comprehensive vision for transforming South Africa from a system built on racial oppression into a nation where all people could participate freely in democratic society. The personal sacrifice embodied in Mandela's decision cannot be overstated, and his own words captured this poignantly when he said, "I cherish my own freedom dearly, but I care even more for your freedom." This statement encapsulated the essence of transformational leadership, demonstrating how genuine leaders prioritize collective progress over personal gain. His rhetorical question about the point of accepting freedom when apartheid would still reduce that freedom to almost nothing highlighted the philosophical sophistication of his approach to liberation struggles. The setting of this historic rejection was itself significant, delivered not in the halls of government or through diplomatic channels, but in Soweto, the heart of Black South African resistance, during a rally originally organized to celebrate Bishop Desmond Tutu's Nobel Peace Prize. This location choice emphasized Mandela connection to the grassroots movement, and his understanding that real change would come from the people rather than from governmental gestures designed more for international public relations than genuine transformation. The manner in which this message reached the public also revealed the continued restrictions placed on the Mandela family and the lengths to which the apartheid government would go to control the narrative. Winnie Mandela, banned from political activity and public gatherings, could not deliver her husband's words herself, forcing their daughter to serve as the conduit for this historic statement. The fact that prison officials had attempted to prevent Mandela from making any statement at all, and that the statement itself was likely illegal under South Africa's security laws, demonstrated the government's fear of his moral authority even while confined. Mandela's emphasis on solidarity with the African National Congress and its exiled leadership under Oliver Tambo revealed his strategic thinking about maintaining unity within the liberation movement, despite the government's attempts to divide and conquer through selective releases and conditional offers. His rejection of reports suggesting differences between the organization's underground wing and its exiles showed his understanding that the apartheid government would exploit any perceived divisions to weaken the resistance movement's effectiveness. The broader implications of Mandela's rejection extended far beyond South Africa's borders, sending a message to liberation movements worldwide about the importance of principled leadership and the dangers of accepting compromises that might provide short-term relief while preserving long-term oppression. His decision demonstrated that sometimes the most powerful response to apparent concessions from oppressive systems is to refuse to participate in negotiations designed to legitimize those very systems while making only cosmetic changes. As I reflect on that moment in Soweto, watching 8,000 people respond to Mandela's words with renewed determination rather than disappointment at his continued imprisonment, I understand that we witnessed something that would reshape not only South Africa's trajectory, but our global understanding of moral leadership. Mandela's rejection was not merely a political calculation, but a profound statement about human dignity and the price of authentic freedom. Today, as we face our own struggles for justice and equality around the world, Mandela's example calls us to examine our own willingness to make principled stands even when more comfortable options are available. His legacy challenges us to ask whether we are prepared to prioritize collective liberation over individual comfort, whether we have the courage to reject compromises that preserve systems of oppression while offering us personal advancement. The question facing each of us is simple yet profound. Will we follow Mandela's example by refusing to sell our birthright, or will we accept the comfortable cages that oppressive systems offer to those willing to remain silent about injustice? Research the liberation movements in your own community, support organizations fighting for justice, and most importantly, refuse to accept compromises that preserve systems of oppression while offering you personal comfort. The fight for freedom continues, and it needs your principled participation.